Every single lash set I do, I get my client to send me a photo of their face without makeup on, just so I can really get a good assessment of what their natural lashes look like, what their eye shape's like, what their face is like, so I can start planning out a set. So anyways, I got Heidi to send me a photo, as you can see, and let's map her out. So firstly, let's talk about her eye shape. She has nothing to correct when it comes to her eye shape. She has beautifully almond eyes, which is super ideal. And on top of that, she has the craziest, strongest natural lashes. So right away, I'm like, okay, let's do some mega volume, because not many people can really handle true mega volume. But I didn't want to do anything so dramatic on Heidi that it really took away from her look. She has such a natural look, right? So I wanted to keep that vibe going, but make her eyes pop. So I did a lighter mega volume set. So mega volume doesn't have to be that crazy, crazy, crazy set of lashes that a lot of people think it has to be. It can be on the lighter side, it can be medium, and it can be really extreme. So today I worked with a mix of our pre-fanned lashes and handmade volume. So for these, I worked with 0.05 and 0.03 diameter. For pre-mades, I worked with 7, 8, and 9D. And then for my handmades, I worked with anything from 7D up to about 12, 13D, just depending on the lash that I was working on. Again, weight wasn't really an issue, but I didn't want the lash set to look too crazy, just crazy enough. So we'll get into the actual lash set in a minute. Also guys, side note, if you're enjoying this video and if you want to see lots of our videos or help us out by supporting us, just go ahead, click that like, subscribe, and ring the bell so that you're notified when we post new videos. We super, super appreciate it. But back to the lash set. So we've assessed her eyes. If there's nothing to correct and the lashes are strong, then there's no reason why we can't do any style that we want or any style that our client really likes. And Heidi's tried cat eye before. She likes it, but she's more of a doll eye type of lash girl, which is great. There's no problems there because we're not correcting anything. And quite honestly, if a client has these beautiful almond shaped eyes and wants drama of any sort, even if it's on the lighter side, then doll eye is such a great mapping for that. So that's why we went with doll eye. So in order to decide which curl, all I did was assess her natural lash lift. So from this photo, you can't really tell, but I further assessed her obviously when she came in and at her services before. I already know her lashes well enough. But I worked with a C curl across the board on the top layer, and then a D curl on the bottom layer. The reason why I worked with C curl on the top is because she has so much lift already, and her eyebrows actually protrude out a little bit further, the eyebrow bone, a little bit further than her eyes. So I wouldn't say she has deep set eyes by any measure, but her eyes are set just a little bit further back. So if I had chosen a really dramatic curl or really dramatic lengths, then I would have ended up hitting that brow bone and it wouldn't have suited her eye shape very much. Now, if she did want more drama, and some people do when it comes to length, then you could have gone longer for sure. All I would have had to do is bumped it down, my top layer down to a B curl, and then it would have sat out further. That would have been totally fine and would have looked beautiful, but I didn't go for that today. Today I worked with a C curl on the top layer, and then for added darkness, I just worked with D curl on the bottom layer. And as you can see, she doesn't have a crazy amount of space between her lash line and her eyebrows. So I didn't want to go too long. So what I did is on the top layer, I'll just draw out my mapping for you, and then we'll see the set. So here's what my mapping looks like. I'll put this at the end of the video too, so you can go ahead and take a screenshot at the end. But you'll see on the inner corners, I worked with 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 being my largest section, and then back down to 11 and 10. Now, I did throw in a few 9mm on the very ends, and I used that in a D curl. I did not use a C curl in this section right here. Only reason why I didn't is because her eyelashes naturally point down. And then throughout on the bottom layer, again, why I use that D curl is she does have a few lashes in pretty much every section that do point down a little bit. So I really wanted to lift that up. Otherwise, if I used less of a curl, it was just gonna sit down and kind of block her vision a little bit, or just look a little bit wonky, which is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to really blend the layers together for a darker effect. So as I've already said, that mapping that I just showed you, that's for the top layer. Now let's talk about the bottom layer. So on the bottom layer, I actually worked with 1 millimeter longer. Why I did that was so the lashes met up at the top at a very nice point. So we have a really nice line effect with this set. Although I worked with wider fans, the set is still textured and fluffy, but it does have a nice line effect. It's not gonna be like that Russian volume, that really dark Russian line, but it's still gonna be fluffy and with a beautiful, we'll say a sunset shape. So that's why I chose that. So as you know, layers sit higher and lower. So the bottom layer sits just a little bit lower than the top layer. So when I'm mapping a set out and I want them to meet at the same point, I have to bump up the lengths on the bottom layer so that they sit just at the same point as the top layer. And sometimes clients will have 2-3 millimeters difference between the layers, but Heidi has really inconsistent layers, so I know only to go 1 millimeter shorter on the top layer than the bottom layer. So as you can see this mapping here, so let's say my 12 millimeter section, on the bottom layer I worked with a 13 millimeter. In my 11 section, I worked with a 12 on the bottom layer. And then in my 9 millimeter section, I worked with 10 and then 10, 11, and so on. So that's how I planned out Heidi's set today. And I worked with our bondage glue, which is our most popular glue here at Lost Artistry. So that is the glue choice that I used today. And then for my tweezer, I chose our Gripopotamus Slim Boot because it is my all-time favorite.